What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 10 of the Elephant Wire podcast, the show where we break down song lyrics and don't play you a damn second of the song because major labels are thieving babies that would sue us up the ass. This week's episode, we're going to be breaking down the song Poke by Frightened Rabbit. Let's get some.
Welcome to the Elephant Wire podcast. Music, drugs, laughter, lyrics.
What is good, everybody? How's everybody doing out there? Episode 10, look at us. Who would have guessed it? We made it this far. Look at us. We're just gonna keep on trucking. Just ride that midnight train right out of town. Keep on going to 100 million episodes. Easy town frolic. Anywho, let's get into it. Frightened Rabbit. If you've never listened to Frightened Rabbit before, do yourself a favor and check them out. They are a incredible band. I always make the joke that the guy that introduced them to me, he described them as imagine if Mumford & Sons didn't suck and was pissed off. That's how I was introduced to Frightened Rabbit, and honestly, I understand that it's a slight at Mumford & Sons, and I apologize for that, but it's pretty on par. It's pretty on point. I'm into it. Frightened Rabbit is a band that is important to a lot of people, and a lot of those people that it is important to, it's important because they were able to see them live. And a Frightened Rabbit show has an overwhelming sense of this mutual empathy in the room. And they end up cultivating quite a bit of unity with their fans and in the room, and but their music kind of it has this both candor to it, but also just this complete sadness, which is absolutely crazy. And as we start to go through this song, you'll start to see Scott Hutchison's lyrics, how he ends up writing, because let's just dive right into this. It was initially a solo project for Scott Hutchison, the lead singer and guitarist and lyricist and vocalist, and Scott was Frightened Rabbit. And we'll actually later on in the episode we'll actually get to a quote where one of the guys in the band said that Scott is Frightened Rabbit. But also in the band we had Scott's younger brother Grant Hutchison. There's no N in there. I'm Midwesting the fuck out of these names. I really am. But his younger brother Grant was on drums. We had Billy Kennedy on bass. We have Andy Monahan on guitar and keys, and Simon Liddell also on guitar. And they've been a band since 2004. And they are based out of Scotland. There's some good boys. So I always find it funny how there's sometimes where you listen to a British singer sing, and you can't tell they're British until you hear them talk, and then you're like, oh, I didn't even know they're British. If someone's from Scotland and they start singing, you know instantly that they're from Scotland. You can't hide it very well whenever you're singing. But that's fine, because it only adds to all the awesomeness that Frightened Rabbit is, and we're super into it. In the early days, Grant and Scott growing up together, Grant being the younger brother, he actually more often than not acted as the older brother. Just a more responsible young man. One of the main areas was whenever they were younger, Scott Hutchison had such a constant battle all through his life with anxiety and depression. And even as a child, he was so anxious about sleeping alone that they ended up putting Grant's bed in his room so they could both sleep in the same room when they were young boys. And his mom used to call him Frightened Rabbit because of it. That was Scott's nickname as a child. So the name obviously stuck around, and that's what they ended up naming their band. But as I said, Scott battled his entire life with depression and anxiety and feeling like he fit in and feeling like he was loved. And as much as he struggled with it, and as much as his music was honestly a therapy for him, on May 9th, 2018, Scott was reported missing to the Scottish police by the members of his band and his brother Grant. He was last seen leaving leaving a hotel early on May 9th, and his brother and the band, they posted something on Twitter asking if anyone had any information, and he was missing. But on May 10th, police found his body in the bay, the victim of apparent suicide. Later that day, the band released a statement that said, "There are no words to describe the overwhelming sadness and pain that comes with the death of our beloved Scott. But to know he is no longer suffering brings us some comfort. Reading messages of support and hope from those he has helped through his art has helped immensely, and we encourage you all to continue doing this. He will be missed by all of us, and his absence will always be felt, but he leaves a legacy of hope, kindness, and color that will forever be remembered and shared. Rest peacefully, Scott. Much love." So since 2018, in the loss of Scott Hutchison, Frightened Rabbit has more or less ceased to be a band, and that all comes from literally the fact that Scott Hutchison was Frightened Rabbit. He was everything to do with this band, and even in an interview with The Guardian in June of 2019, just almost a year after Scott's death, Peter Ross of The Guardian, he asked Simon Liddell and he asked Billy Kennedy, does Frightened Rabbit still exist? And like I said, this is less than a year after the loss of Scott Hutchison. He says, does the band Frightened Rabbit still exist? And they're sitting in a cafe, they turn and look at each other and shake their heads, no. And Billy Kennedy says, no, it doesn't exist without Scott at all. Scott is Frightened Rabbit. And that's why I say this, is that, as we go forward through these lyrics, and even just Scott's lyrics in general, I believe it's the song Floating in the Fourth, off of the same album that this song comes off of. Actually, if I remember correctly, it's the song right after the song we're talking about today, the song Floating in the Fourth. Scott sings the line, I'll save suicide for another year, as the song tells his story of back and forth struggle with depression. And the Fourth is the name of a bridge, Fourth Street Bridge, if it will, that ultimately is the same bridge where Scott had taken his life. And, in different interviews that I was looking at, there were multiple times where the band members, that song specifically of Floating in the Fourth, where they mentioned how difficult it was when they first played that song, and that Scott first played it for them. And they even considered to themselves, like, should we even fucking play this song? Like, this is heavy. Saying, I'll save suicide for another year. And then that ends up being the exact bridge that he committed suicide off of a few years later. And their struggle with that as his bandmates, and even Grant as his brother. Grant goes on to say in an interview I was looking at that, he feels now that the music belongs to the listeners, who were consoled by Scott's lyrics. There's a lyric from one of their other songs, a song called Heads Roll Off, and I was wondering how to actually say this, but I'm just going to quote his lyrics instead. In the song Heads Roll Off, off of the same album that we're talking about today, which is Midnight Organ Fight, which our song Poke comes off of as well. Heads Roll Off might be possibly their most popular song, but Scott makes the statement, when my blood stops, someone else's will have not. Which is also another incredible premonition lyric that we have from Scott. He had battled depression so long, he knew he could only win that fight for so long, apparently, is the way that he presented this, because he even says, I guess I'll wait. All right, well, if and when or how or why it does happen, when my blood stops, someone else's will have not. And because of that, like I said, the band had such turmoil if they would even play certain songs that Scott had written, talking about how much he was going through. These are times whenever they realized that Scott was doing this for a bigger and a purpose than himself, is that when my blood stops, someone else's will have not. Hopefully I can help someone else, because he had so much trouble helping himself. And it's sad to know that this is the case. But as Frightened Rabbit had said in that statement that I had read, is exactly that. He'll be missed by all of us, and his absence will be felt, but he leaves a legacy of hope, kindness, and color. Is exactly what the band said about the loss of Scott. But let's kind of dive into some other random history moments. I just wanted to give a little bit of just a moment of our time in remembering Scott there and everything that he gave us. And I apologize if nobody was prepared for something like that, but I feel we owe it to Scott because we're using his lyrics for our podcast today, and so we owe it to him to remember him as a beautiful human being. And, but let's get back at it. Frightened Rabbit's first studio album, "Sing the Grays," was recorded by the Hutchison brothers and Billy Kennedy. And they released it on an independent label. And then very soon after that, the band ended up signing to Fat Cat Records in 2007, and that's where they stayed all the way through up until the end of Frightened Rabbit in 2018. The album we're talking about today is an album called Midnight Organ Fight. And the album came out on April 14th, 2008. And it's actually, the album title is a quote from the song Fast Blood, which is track 4 on the album. And it's actually a euphemism for sex. Midnight Organ Fight. Which is kind of funny to think, like, okay, so if your sex sounds like a midnight organ fight, like, I don't know if that's awesome or if that's whatever. Well, I'm into it. Let's go with it. I actually kind of want to know what that would be like now. Huh. No, I've always heard the joke that, when sex is like someone running in flip-flops, that's always a good time. But midnight organ fight as a euphemism for sex, I'm into it. Let's do this. When Midnight Organ Fight came out, NME, a publication we referenced quite a bit on this podcast, it ranked the album Midnight Organ Fight 36 out of the 50 albums of the year in 2008, which is a solid spot to be at. Frightened Rabbit was still relatively small at the time and hadn't quite broken through and started getting the fan base that they ended up having. But NME actually said the album Midnight Organ Fight, they said it was bleak, also utterly beautiful, scathingly honest, darkly hilarious, and impossibly grandiose is the way that they described the album Midnight Organ Fight. Pitchfork, when they reviewed it, they said Frightened Rabbit aren't the first band to explore loneliness, horniness, or emptiness in song, just like they aren't the first set of siblings to decide to jam together. But their jangly melodies claw their way inside your brain just the same. Which, a very astute take on this. Scott Hutchison at one point, when talking to Pop Cop, said that the song "Poke," the song we're talking about today, he said it's about looking back on things and trying to figure out why the relationship didn't quite work, which is honestly rather self-explanatory as we start to go through these lyrics. Now, one other funny little tidbit about the song "Poke," it was actually featured on an episode of One Tree Hill at one point. And the band very openly admitted that they are not fans of that American TV show, which I don't think anyone saw that coming, but, everyone saw that coming. They're not fans of the show, but Scott actually explained later about, hearing that the song "Poke" that we're talking about today was actually featured on that show. He said it's one of the more forthright and personal songs on the record, and for it to be used in a teen drama, I wasn't against it all because I thought, fair enough, but it was weird to have that running underneath a teenage crisis, whereas actually that was kind of a serious point in my life. I cannot imagine what that, it would just completely take away everything that everything that, like he said, it was a kind of a serious point in my life, and then just like with teenagers having pithy issues, that would kind of kill it too. That'd be a tough one to take in. But I guess that's one of the things is as your music gets out there and it gets into more hands and it gets more popular, I guess you run the risk of a teenage drama airing your song on their show. But I think they took it in stride. They'll be all right. But the song today, it's track 12 of 14. It is mostly acoustic guitar. It's about 4 minutes, 36 seconds long. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think the use of vocal emphasis is honestly what makes this song. I truly do. Because there's no percussion at any point in the song. There's at a couple points, you can actually hear him sing through his teeth at a couple different points in the song. And I think that absolutely makes it, completely makes it. Because you can audibly hear the pain. It's not just like, oh, you feel that? Because you do feel it too. But there are a couple times when you honestly hear his pain in the way his voice cracks or he sings through his teeth. It's incredible. Poke at my iris. Why can't I cry about this? Maybe there's something that you know that I don't. We adopt a brand new language, communicate through pursed lips, and you try not to put on any sexy clothes or graces. I might never catch a mouse and present it in my mouth to make you feel you're with someone who deserves to be with you. But there's one thing we've got going, and it's the only thing worth knowing. It's got lots to do with magnets and the pull of the moon. Why won't our love keel over as it chokes on a bone, and we can just mourn its passing and then bury it in snow? Or should we kick its cunt in and watch as it dies from bleeding? If you don't want to be with me, just say, and I will go. Well, we can change our partners. This is a progressive dance, but I remember it was me who dragged you up to the sweaty floor. Well, this has been a reel. I've got shin splints and a stitch from Wee. But like a drunken night, it's the best bits that are colored in. You should look through some old photos. I adored you in every one of those. If someone took a picture of us now, they'd need to be told that we had ever clung and tied. A navy knot with arms at night. I'd say she was his sister, but she doesn't have his nose. And now we're unrelated, and rid of all the shit we hated. But I hate when I feel like this. And I never hated you. That last line, I hate when I feel like this because I never hated you. Whew. Oh man, let's get into this. I'm sorry folks, this is a heavy one today. It's tough to have a whole bunch of fun whenever this is our subject matter. It's a rough one, but we're going to get through this. We're going to learn something, maybe just about the music, but hopefully about ourselves as well. The more you know. All right, first fucking line, first verse. Poke at my iris. Why can't I cry about this? Why would anyone ever ask someone to poke them in the iris? Well, the last line of that little stanza there is, maybe there's something that you know that I don't. It's almost like he's lost his ability to feel anything about it anymore. He's been battling this and going through this situation for so long that he literally is, whether it's based on the fact that he's basically cried himself out or he's completely numb. I mean, poke in my iris, so I can't even cry about this anymore. Like, either he's done it for too long, or, like I said, he's completely numb to the situation. And he goes on to say, we adopt a brand new language, communicate through pursed lips. So to purse your lips is literally the polar opposite of puckering your lips. So literally, suck your lips in between your teeth. That's pursed lips. It's the opposite of making a kiss face. It's absolutely like a sign of withdrawal, or you're annoyed, maybe even anger. And they communicate this way. And he even says, and you try not to put on any sexy clothes or graces. It's now there's two ways to look at this. Because on one side of things, and I think it's a stretch, is that, to think that this girl that he's talking to has completely thrown in the towel on her physical appearance. I highly doubt that that's what he's saying by you try not to put on any sexy clothes or graces. I think more so what he's saying is he almost like, it's almost like she's not even attractive to him anymore. Yeah, just that everything between them has just grown so much more than just what's emotionally between them. It's now completely changed her appearance to him. Then again, I mean, lyrics are obviously subjective. Maybe she literally has just gone straight to just sweatpants and a hoodie every day. Like, just completely just hair and a top on, doesn't fucking care. And that's fine. Like, it could go either way, but he makes sure to make it a point that he says when they're communicating with each other and they're angry when they communicate with each other, and they're withdrawn and they're annoyed by each other in all their communication, he makes sure to throw in there, you try not to put on any sexy clothes or graces. I mean, I guess a third side of this could also be that he even recognizes that she's not trying to lead him on. I highly doubt that that's what he's referencing, but it is kind of fun to kind of consider all the options that could be. And then he goes into a very interesting metaphor here. Because he says, I might never catch a mouse and present it in my mouth to make you feel you're with someone who deserves to be with you. The analogy he's using of a cat bringing a dead mouse to its owner in search of praise is a very interesting metaphor to use, because obviously the point of that gesture is known. When the owner of a cat sees that their cat has brought them a dead mouse, and lays it on their pillow or lays it on the kitchen floor or wherever. Obviously, the owner of that cat understands the gesture. Like, and it's relatively received, but the act itself is repulsive. Obviously, nobody wants a dead mouse laying on their kitchen floor, no matter how appreciative of the gesture you are. Nobody wants a dead mouse laying on their floor. So it's an interesting metaphor to say, I might never be able to catch a mouse and present it to you in my mouth to make you feel you're with someone who deserves to be with you. Because he's even acknowledging from the very get-go that she is repulsed, even if she understands his gesture, even if she is thankful for his gesture, she is still repulsed by him and what he is bringing to the table. And it's also obviously struggling with the thought process of his worth is really what Scott was going through in this moment. And this is a constant theme in Scott's lyrics, is that he struggled with his self-worth. And he even says in one song, in the song "Keep Yourself Warm," he which is earlier in this album, he even makes a statement: "You won't find love in a hole. It takes more than fucking someone to keep yourself warm." This is another song on this same album where, once again, he's struggling with his self-worth. He views himself as the dead, he views himself as this act that could never be received. No matter what act he tries to prove his worth. And he continues on and he says, but there's one thing we've got going, and it's the only thing worth knowing. It's got lots to do with magnets and the pull of the moon. Obviously, gravity and magnetism, we all know those very well. Two invisible forces attract, plus and minus. Magnetism can also refer to the adage. Gravity, obviously, you have whatever. Gravity is pulling it down. I mean, pick literally any type of matter in the universe. Gravity's pulling it down. Other than helium, I guess. I mean, there are things, not any bit of matter in the universe, but you get what I'm saying. And in magnetism, obviously, opposites attract. So in the context of this verse, it implies that despite a lack of passion and his unworthiness, there is still some attraction there. As we as we saw a little earlier, maybe it's not obviously physical when he says you try not to put on any sexy clothes or graces. The attraction that is still there. If there's one thing we've got going, it's magnets, the pull of the moon, it's gravity. We can't fucking help ourselves. Maybe he's not necessarily attracted to her physically, and he has trouble even communicating with her. But there is some type of pull that keeps bringing them back together. And maybe in the relationship, like I said, it's not purely attractive, but it's maybe more in the sense of being right. Wanting to win the argument, or literally just being accepted in general, finding your self-worth. I mean, there's a multitude of things that Scott could be going with at this point, that he's honestly referencing here. But obviously, whenever he says it's got lots to do with magnets that pull the moon, he is acknowledging right off the bat that they should not be together, that their opposites are what is causing them to want to be together. And then he just right after that says, why won't our love keel over as it chokes on a bone? Like, why won't it just die already? And then he says, and we can mourn its passing and then bury it in snow. We could just pretend none of this ever fucking happened. He just wants it to violently, and he just wants it to violently finish and just be done. As it feels to him as if it's choking on a bone. It's just like no forward movement, nothing enjoyable. And he even goes on to say, or should we kick its cunt in and watch as it dies from bleeding? Like, how do we stop this? How do we end this? Now, obviously, in Scotland and a majority of Greater Britain, and Great Britain in general, the word cunt carries a very, very different connotation than it usually does here in the United States. So it isn't, this is a situation where we absolutely see, like I was saying earlier, we know for a fact they're from Scotland, the way that they speak. But like he's saying, I mean, should we just kick it in and watch as it dies from bleeding? Like, he is so done with this. He's done with all the heartache. He's done with everything that this has brought him. And then the very last line of the first verse, he says, if you don't want to be with me, just say, and I will go. Now, this line is tough, and his voice cracks as he sings it. Like he is choked up in the moment, and it shows the amount of pain that is truly behind that line. Now, there's a ton of subject matter here in such a short phrase. Because is he saying in this statement, is he saying he's being led on? I mean, if you don't want to be with me, just say and I will go. Is he saying that, like a dog choking on a bone, she refuses to just come clean, that she doesn't want to be in this relationship anymore? Is it stagnant? Is it let's try again, let's try again, let's try again. He's literally saying, if you don't want to be with me, just say and I will go. Now, obviously, there are two sides to every story. I mean, how many girls out there have had to deal with telling a guy no, and either he just straight up doesn't fucking accept it, or he sees it as a challenge to try harder. Like, this is something that girls go through a lot. And let's reference this at this point. If you don't want to be with me, just say and I will go. Who's to say that she hasn't already fucking said that to him 37 times? We cannot roll this out, because this is all too often, as I said, this is something that women battle with constantly, of being told no, or telling a guy no and him not receiving it at all. We go into the second verse and he says, well, we can change our partners. This is a progressive dance. Like, he's saying, like, we can break up and date completely different people. Like, and even, dancing is used as comparison for relationships. Like, this is a progressive dance. It's almost like, the end is getting closer for their relationship. It's closer than it's been, in the past. Apparently, it's kind of coming to a head. And because the next line in that stanza is, remember it was me who dragged you up to the sweaty floor. And he almost says this like, hey, before you go, excuse me, he almost says it like, hey, before you go, before we change our partners, because this is a progressive dance, you're allowed to make that move. Before you go, just remember, it was me who dragged you up to the sweaty floor. Now, Scott is alluding to the fact that he, dragging her up to the sweaty floor, it seems as if he is, referencing helping this girl, that she overcame some type of apprehension, and him like giving her the push she might have needed to let loose or stop caring and dance on a sweaty dance floor. Is straight up what this feels. Remember, it was me who dragged you up to the sweaty floor. Like, remember, it was me who pushed you to step outside the box and be yourself. And it's interesting so many times when people, to look at Scott's life and to look at what Scott battled with, to then still be the kind of person that would drag someone to a dance floor and get them to come out of their shell, yet struggled so much with acceptance and depression and feeling like he belonged anywhere. I mean, this is the beauty of a mind like this, that they have the ability to change so many lives around them, but struggle so much with their own existence. And it's difficult to reach out a lot of times and to help someone in this scenario, because like this, Scott just dragged someone up to the dance floor and they're killing it up there. Scott's not depressed. Depression takes very many forms, and we need to look out for those that we love, and we need to be a resource for those that we love, so that whenever someone is going through something and someone does need help, that we can be there and we can be a resource and we can be a friend. We can be an ear. We can be a shoulder. I mean, because, like, as we keep going, well, this has been a reel. I've got shin splints and a stitch from we. I mean, Scott's talking about, like, he actually had fun in their relationship because he even says, but like a drunken night, it's the best bits that are colored in. Like that first line, though this has been a reel, it's a play on words, actually, because, it's like saying it's been real or it's been fun. This has been a reel because in the actual lyrics, it's not real, R-E-A-L, like it's been real, but it's R-E-E-L, which a reel is an upbeat folk like dance that had originated in Scotland. It was a traditional folk dance is a reel. So he's referencing, well, this has been a reel. It's a play on words. I've got shin splints and a stitch from we. But like a drunken night, it's the best bits that are colored in. He's talking about that they had so much fun together and they partied so much. He literally, like, they danced and danced until he had shin splints. And he pissed himself a little bit because he was hammered. And they were dancing to these old Scottish folk dance tunes. It's fucking awesome. Just as he's pleading with her to give him any amount of information that he can utilize. If you don't want to be with me, just say and I'll go. We can date other people, whatever. Just remember how much fun it's been. And like a drunken night, the fun parts are the parts that you can actually remember. And then he keeps even going from there. He says, you should look through some old photos. I adored you in every one of those. That's an interesting thing to reference because, like, how many of us, maybe months later, years later, have looked back at pictures of us with an ex of some kind, or a former crush or something like that, and enough time has passed that you can actually appreciate the photos again. You can actually see the joy in the photo again. Well, he's saying this before they even break up. He's saying you should look through some old photos. I adored you in every one of those. But then he tells us why he actually makes that reference. He says if someone took a picture of us now, they'd need to be told. Like if it was Scott and whoever this girl is, and they were standing there in this photo, and there's 10 other people in the picture, whoever was looking at it would need to be told that Scott and this girl, there was anything going on there at all. And what he's referencing, he says, someone took a picture of us now, they'd need to be told that we had ever clung and tied a navy knot with arms at night. What he's saying is someone would need to be told that they ever banged. Someone would never need to be told that they held each other and comforted each other and were ever a thing, were ever an item. And even in quotes, I don't know if you caught this whenever I was doing the reading of these lyrics, because this should definitely be in quotes, because what he's doing now is he's taking on the character of someone looking at one of those old photos. And he says, I'd say she was his sister, but she doesn't have his nose. He's telling this girl that this song is about. He's saying to her, if someone looked at a picture of us, they might be like, I guess she's his sister, but she doesn't really have his nose, though. They would have no reason to ever assume that they were dating at the time. And he references that navy knot. It's a metaphor for sex once again, being locked in each other's embrace. And it actually kind of reminds me of our lyric breakdown we did of Johnny Cash, Walk the Line. When the tie that binds and their arms tied together in a navy knot. and he goes from that stanza, I'd say she was his sister, but she doesn't have his nose. He starts the next line and says, and now we're unrelated and rid of all the shit we hated. They're so distant now, they've lost all connection. And to reference some old photos, and someone might assume relation, now Scott wouldn't even do so. Scott would not even look at an old photo, and he says, now we're unrelated and rid of all the shit we hated. And the last 2 lines of this song, good God, is this line the stab and twist moment. Because Scott says, I hate when I feel like this, and I never hated you. And to be in this position that you have only loved someone, you never felt ill will toward them, even now. But to feel that way, knowing that he had only felt love toward her, is the most difficult thing he deals with now. We've gone through this entire song and all the difficulty and all the things that he is soul-searching and trying to work through and trying to figure out. to then come out this side and realize that the number one thing that he struggles the most with is that he hates that he feels like this at all because he never hated her. Not once. He only loved her. And this, honestly, this is one of the most difficult things about breaking up, is kind of coming to terms with how you actually feel about someone now. And trying to basically put them in a different filing cabinet in your brain. And trying to transfer all those files, and it's messy, and you always forget where everything was, and that's what he's struggling with, is repurposing where she's at in his brain, because he just wants to keep her in the file of love. And he has so much difficulty with this. One more time, I just want to say Scott Hutchison is missed beyond belief. We want to thank him for his lyrics. We want to thank him and the entire band, Frightened Rabbit. We want to thank them for everything that they've done. And in the words of Grant, their drummer and Scott's younger brother, the music belongs to the fans now. The music belongs to those who Scott's lyrics have helped and whose lives that they have changed. We miss Scott terribly, but he no longer suffers. His beautiful life and everything that he gave to us, we owe him every bit to take in these lyrics, take in these words that he has written, and live the best possible life, helping those and loving those around us. I think we owe that to Scott. So thank you, Scott. Thank you, Frightened Rabbit. This is a fantastic song. Once again, a little heavier of an episode today than usual. I will admit that. But I've been looking forward to doing this song for a long time because I think it's one of the most badass, awesome breakup songs of all time that you could ever listen to. But it is officially that point in the podcast where we have our local band spotlight. Local band spotlight. This week, we have the Monarchy from Ohio. They have written to me, and they wrote this old-fashioned with a wax-dipped envelope. I held it up to the light first to see what it was. I thought it was a check. I don't know why. I never get checks in the mail. I'm going to call my grandma this week. Anywho, just outside Westerville, Ohio, you'll find a very quaint red barn by a small lake, perfectly situated between rolling hills of thick grass. As you brush past the wildflowers and butterflies on your way inside the rustic space, what you'll hear along the pathway will be in sharp contrast to this pristine setting. Listen closely, and you'll hear the inspirational sounds of the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Jimi Hendrix, the Raconteurs, and the Rival Sons. Why did I put it the? There is no the. And Rival Sons. They're not the Led Zeppelins. I don't know why I did that. That was going so well. Damn it. Anywho, and Rival Sons, all being channeled into the original music by a 5-piece band of rock and roll alchemists called The Monarchy. Fucking love that. Great job, guys. Fantastic little bio. Monarchy is good times. You're definitely going to have to check out the song that I added to the Local Bands That Don't Suck Spotify playlist. Check out the rest of their music as well. These guys are fantastic. Follow them on Instagram. I'm sure they got shit on YouTube. Who doesn't? These guys are fantastic. Check them out. Their singer is incredible. Loving that. Support local music, guys. Support local music. We end every episode this way, and I want to thank you guys so much for all the support that you've given us here at the Elephant Wire. But support local music. Go out and support your local musicians in any way you can, even if it's just hitting them up on Instagram or over Twitter or over text message or however you want to do it, and just letting them know that you appreciate their music. That can literally mean the difference in someone's day, week, month, life. Show some love to everyone around you this week. Make sure to pass it along, man. Pay it forward. We all need more love in the world. Absolutely. That's what's up, dude. But for everybody over here at the Elephant Wire, thank you so much. Jake, the host of the Elephant Wire podcast, signing off. Remember, fuck the man Hail Satan. Hug your mom. I'll catch you guys next Monday. Peace.